Here is a sentence that should not be possible.
Moldova supports all efforts that bring an end to the war and the suffering it causes.
A constitutionally neutral country, sandwiched between Romania and a war zone, with a Russian-backed separatist enclave sitting on its own soil, just raised its hand to join a 34-nation security coalition for Ukraine. And it did it the same week Russian strikes knocked out the power line, supplying up to 70% of its electricity. That country is Moldova. And before you scroll past because you think this is a minor footnote in a big war, stick around. Because what Moldovan President Maia Sandu announced on March 23rd is one of the more strategically significant moves in Eastern Europe this year. Not because Moldova is about to send tanks anywhere, it is not, but because the logic behind this decision reveals exactly what Russia's long game looks like, and exactly why that long game is starting to fail. On March 23rd, following a National Security Council meeting in Chisinau, President Sandu confirmed that Moldova has expressed its readiness to join the coalition of the willing, the 34-nation initiative led by Britain and France that has pledged to support Ukraine's security, including potentially deploying a peacekeeping force on Ukrainian soil once a ceasefire is reached. Sandu was clear about what Moldova is and isn't offering. Moldova is not sending combat troops. What it can contribute, she said, is what it is already doing, training sappers and demining specialists. The offer is to expand that role into post-war Ukraine, training and deploying clearance teams once the shooting stops. She was also upfront that this isn't a done deal yet. The formal request still needs to be accepted by existing coalition members, and she expects a response within 1 to 2 months. That is good, careful statecraft from a government that cannot afford to get ahead of itself. Let's be honest, when a statement mentions demining, most people's eyes glaze over slightly. It doesn't have the same ring as fighter jets or tank columns. But stay with me here, because demining in post-war Ukraine is not a bureaucratic footnote. It is the difference between Ukraine recovering and Ukraine spending the next decade unable to. Ukraine is now one of the most mine-contaminated countries on Earth, and the recovery math is brutal. A road that is mined is not a road. A field that is mined is not farmland. A village that is mined is not actually liberated in any meaningful civilian sense. It is just a place people cannot return to yet. Reconstruction crews cannot move in. Agriculture cannot restart. Displaced families cannot go home. Russia can destroy with drones and missiles in hours. Recovery takes years. And mines are one of the cheapest ways to make those years as miserable as possible. A specialist with a detector and a clearance plan is not a glamorous headline. But in the post-war phase, they matter as much as a howitzer did earlier in the war. That is what Moldova is offering to provide. And that is why it matters. Here is where it gets genuinely clever. Moldova's constitution, specifically Article 11, proclaims permanent neutrality and bars foreign military troops from being stationed on Moldovan territory. So how does joining a security coalition square with that? Sandu's argument is that post-war demining and sapper training does not violate that rule. And she is probably right. Moldova is not stationing foreign troops, not entering a mutual defense pact, not abandoning its constitutional status. It is offering a technical, post-war, non-combat contribution. That distinction is politically essential. It lets Chisinau tell nervous domestic audiences, and there are plenty of them, that this is not NATO by stealth. And simultaneously, it tells European partners that Moldova is serious, useful, and willing to carry some of the risk. For a country in Moldova's position, finding the point where legality, capacity, and symbolism all overlap is not a compromise. It is exactly the right doctrine. Moldova can remain formally neutral while becoming operationally relevant. That is a much bigger shift than it sounds. Now let's zoom out, because you cannot understand Moldova's decision without understanding the situation it has been living in for over 30 years. And it is, frankly, one of the stranger geopolitical arrangements on the planet. Moldova has a breakaway region called Transnistria, a thin strip of land along its eastern border that declared independence in 1990, has never been recognized by any UN member state, and has had Russian troops stationed on it ever since. Transnistria is not a frozen conflict in the diplomatic sense. It is an active tool of Russian leverage, kept alive precisely because it gives Moscow a pressure valve inside Moldovan territory whenever Chisinau gets any ideas about moving west. The message from Moscow has always been simple. Your sovereignty is conditional, your neutrality is fragile, and your future can be jammed whenever we choose. Moldova has lived with that reality for 3 decades. Which makes Moldova, of all countries, uniquely qualified to understand what Russia is actually trying to do in Ukraine. The goal is not just conquest, it is veto power. The ability to keep neighboring states permanently nervous, partially mobilized, and politically penetrated. A frozen, half-broken country where Moscow can always reach in and make things worse is far more useful to the Kremlin than a formerly occupied one. So when Moldova leans toward the coalition, even in a non-combat post-war role, it is directly rejecting that logic. It is saying that small states near Russia do not have to remain strategically inert forever. And that is bad news for the Kremlin, because Moldova was supposed to be one of the easier countries to keep in line. Here is the thing about Moldova's neutrality in this conflict. Russia never really respected it anyway. This week, the same week Sandu made her coalition announcement, Russian strikes on Ukraine's energy infrastructure knocked out the high-voltage Isakia-Vulcaneshti transmission line, the power link connecting southern Moldova to EU member Romania. That line, according to President Sandu, supplies up to 60 to 70% of Moldova's electricity consumption at peak periods. Moldova's parliament voted to impose a 60-day state of emergency in the energy sector. Prime Minister Alexandru Munteanu said chain power outages could not be ruled out. This was not the first time. Earlier in March, a Russian strike on a hydroelectric plant in Ukraine sent oil pollution down the Dniester River into Moldova, disrupting water supplies to roughly 80% of the country's 2.5 million people. In January, major power outages hit the capital, Chisinau, after a disruption to power lines from Ukraine caused a voltage drop across the country. 3 separate incidents in 3 months, all caused by a war Moldova is not a party to, all landing on Moldovan civilians. The fiction that Moldova can sit nearby, stay perfectly untouched, and simply issue worried statements is not a policy position anymore. It is a dark joke. Geography ended that argument a long time ago. Sandu's coalition signal is the recognition that Moldova's security is already entangled with Ukraine's outcome, and that helping shape post-war stability in Ukraine is also a way of reducing Moldova's own exposure to perpetual crisis. Let's put Moldova's move in the wider context, because the coalition of the willing is not a simple story either. The coalition was officially announced by British Prime Minister Keir Starmer on March 2, 2025, following the London summit on Ukraine. It now includes 34 countries plus Ukraine, with Britain and France in the lead. The core idea is a reassurance force that would deploy on Ukrainian soil once a ceasefire or peace deal is reached, not along the front line, but in strategic locations like cities, ports, and power plants, acting as a deterrent against renewed Russian aggression. As of this week, military officials from those nations are actively in planning sessions at NATO's Northwood headquarters in England, working across 5 subgroups covering land, sea, air, regeneration, and reconstruction. That last subgroup, reconstruction, is exactly where Moldova fits. And this is the part that rarely gets enough attention. Big powers provide the air cover, the cash, and the heavy equipment. Smaller states provide the specialist functions that make a post-war agreement actually stick on the ground. Engineers, trainers, border experts, forensic teams, deminers, the boring jobs, the absolutely essential jobs. One country supports bridge repair, another trains border police, another helps protect energy infrastructure. The effect is cumulative, and the cumulative effect is to deny Russia its favorite post-war strategy, leaving territory mined, disrupted, and ungovernable long enough for fatigue and frustration to do the political work that military force couldn't finish. And this is where Moldova's move stops being a small country raising its hand and starts looking like a direct attack on one of Moscow's core methods of control. Russia does not just want land, it wants uncertainty around the land. It wants reconstruction delayed, neighbors intimidated, and territory left half broken long enough for the West to lose interest. A coalition that starts actively planning for clearance, monitoring, and stabilization is a coalition designed specifically to deny Russia that second victory. Every additional state willing to invest in post-war Ukraine's security architecture makes a coercive peace harder to impose and harder to sustain. And here is the thing about Moldova joining that coalition. Even in a limited role, it changes how other capitals start to view the country. Less as a passive flank to be protected, more as a niche contributor to a wider Eastern security system. For a country that has spent decades being treated as an object of geopolitics rather than a subject of it, that is a substantial shift in posture. Moldova is signaling that it is inside the room, not outside it. Russia, meanwhile, has its usual response ready. A State Duma deputy this week dismissed the move as Moldova trying to align with Romania and demonstrate unity with the EU. Which is true, it is doing exactly that. And Moscow calling that out as a criticism says more about the Kremlin's frustration than it does about Moldova's judgment. Subscribe if you want to keep following this, because the story developing here is not just about Moldova. Europe is learning, slowly and expensively, that security is not just deterrence at the front, it is sustainment in depth. Ammunition plants, rail lines, grid connections, border control, repair yards, training pipelines, clearance teams. Every war eventually becomes a competition between systems. Russia has repeatedly tried to weaponize the messy transition between combat and reconstruction. Mines, energy shocks, proxy enclaves, disinformation, all designed to make neighboring states feel exhausted before they feel secure. Moldova's move touches that exact nerve. It says the post-war phase in Ukraine cannot be left as a vacuum. It must be populated early by states willing to do the hard, technical, institution-building work that turns contested territory into governable territory. No dramatic music, no missile launches, just survey teams, clearance vehicles, training grounds, and engineering maps. But that is how wars are actually consolidated. And that is why Russia fears not only weapons deliveries, it fears competence. Competence is much harder to bomb. Who gains leverage here, and who loses it? Ukraine gains because every additional state investing in post-war security architecture makes a coercive peace harder to enforce. Europe gains by broadening the base of burden sharing beyond the usual major powers. Moldova gains because it stops looking like a spectator and starts behaving like a stakeholder whose security begins at Ukraine's border, not its own. And Russia loses because one of its favorite long-term targets for intimidation is signaling that fear will no longer automatically translate into paralysis. The move is not settled. Coalition politics can stall. Ceasefire frameworks can collapse. Moldova remains genuinely vulnerable through energy dependency, through Transnistria, through disinformation campaigns that have been running for years. But the direction of travel is unmistakable. Even countries once treated as too small, too neutral, or too exposed are beginning to make practical choices. Sandu's statement was small, precise, and easy to underestimate, which, as history keeps reminding us, is often exactly how the really important changes begin.